The FBI closed Amerithrax, naming Bruce Ivins. But Ivins was never charged, and the scientific evidence was later examined by the National Academies and the Government Accountability Office. Neither review identified another attacker or ruled on Ivins's guilt. Their narrower finding was that genetics could connect the letters to a line of laboratory material, but could not, by itself, identify the person who mailed them. The story began in the tense weeks after September 11, 2001. Anthrax was moving through the United States mail. 5 people were killed. 17 more were sickened. The intended recipients included senators and major news organizations, but the people put in danger were not limited to the names written on the envelopes. The letters passed through automated sorting equipment, exposing postal workers and closing facilities for decontamination. 2 workers at the Brentwood facility, Joseph Cursine Jr. and Thomas Morris, died. The facility was later named for them. Amerithrax became one of the FBI's largest and most complex investigations. Agents conducted more than 10,000 interviews, issued thousands of subpoenas, and collected thousands of environmental samples. Its scale explains the volume of the government's work, but scale does not decide who mailed the letters. So the question is not whether the FBI investigated. It did. The question is narrower and more difficult. When investigators finally attached one name to the attacks, what did each part of the evidence actually establish? In 2008, the United States settled Stephen Hatfield's civil case for $2.825 million, plus an annual annuity, while admitting no Privacy Act violation and denying liability. That settlement did not determine who mailed the letters and was not a criminal finding. By August 2008, federal officials said they were preparing to charge Bruce Ivins, a scientist at the Army's Biodefense Laboratory at Fort Detrick. Ivins died before charges were filed. As a result, the government's case was never tested in a criminal trial. In February 2010, the Justice Department, FBI, and Postal Inspection Service formally closed Amerithrax. Their conclusion was that Ivins had carried out the attacks. For the government, the investigation was resolved. The Scientific Source Association used in the case would later receive independent review. One finding was broadly accepted. The dominant organism in the letters was the Ames strain of Bacillus anthracis. Investigators then compared the attack material with a reference collection of Ames samples from laboratories. That comparison pointed to a Fort Detrick flask known as RMR 1029. The National Academies found genetic similarities consistent with the FBI's view that the attack material was derived from it. But RMR 1029 was not the immediate source of the mailed spores. One or more additional growth steps would have been required. This evidence traced a line of source material. It did not identify who prepared or mailed the letters. That distinction is the center of this case. A biological sample can point toward a family of laboratory material without becoming a fingerprint of the person who committed the crime. A source material link is not a person ID. The National Academies said the science produced useful leads, but did not rule out other possible sources. It also found weaknesses in the reference collection, the stored Ames samples used for comparison, which limited what the comparisons could establish. This did not identify another attacker. It defined the remaining uncertainty about source material. The committee did not assess the entire law enforcement investigation or decide anyone's guilt or innocence. Its conclusion was narrower. Science alone could not establish a definitive origin. A later review by the Government Accountability Office reached another carefully limited result. GAO said the genetic tests were generally verified and validated, but it said the work lacked a common rulebook and a clear statistical measure of how much confidence to place in the validation results. GAO also found gaps in sample controls, in explaining how mutations arose, and in measuring uncertainty. It recommended improvements, but it did not decide whether the FBI's conclusion about Ivins was right or wrong. Taken together, the reviews did not reverse the case or identify another attacker. They established a narrower point. The genetic evidence was a significant lead to laboratory material, not standalone proof of an individual's guilt. So what remains? The attacks are real. The deaths are real. The government formally concluded that Bruce Ivins was responsible. The scientific evidence created a significant lead toward laboratory material at Fort Detrick. But Ivins died before charges were filed, so no criminal trial tested the government's conclusion. According to the Postal Inspection Service, The attacks changed mail screening and biological threat preparedness. But preparedness is not the same as restoration. Joseph Curseen Jr. and Thomas Morris did not return to work. 3 other people also lost their lives, and 17 survived illness. Amerithrax can be officially closed while the boundary of its scientific evidence remains visible. That boundary is not proof of a hidden answer. It is a reminder that closing a case and proving every part of it are not always the same thing.